Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Whether you're joining us live from the East Coast, the West Coast, somewhere in the middle, or watching the recording sometime later, we just want to welcome you to session 1 of the Multi-State Electric School Bus Boot Camp. My name is Daphne Dixon, and I'm Executive Director of Live Green Network and Connecticut Southwestern Area Clean Cities Coalition. I'm joined by our team here today, Kelsey McCormick, Alyssa Murphy, and Aidan Bennett. Thank you, ladies, so much for all that you do to make these boot camps go so smoothly. We are so excited today to share with you some exciting news and also this amazing vehicle to grid case study from Beverly, Massachusetts. We're so excited to share that with you. But before we do that, we want to just thank you. We want to thank all of you who came here today and are joining with us. And it is quite a it's quite a group that we have. And we have folks from Alabama, California, Connecticut, Colorado, Delaware, District of Columbia, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Kentucky, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Nebraska, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, Texas, Vermont, Virginia, and Wisconsin. So we are just delighted to have so many people from all across the country who are here today to learn more about vehicle to grid. So I wanted to just turn it over to a moment to Kelsey McCormick, and she's just going to give you some high points about vehicle to grid. Thank you so much, Kelsey.
Hi, everybody. So I'm just here to give a really brief overview of vehicle to grid, and you'll hear a lot more about it in the case study today. So vehicle to grid, or V2G, enables electric vehicles to store energy in their batteries and to send that energy back into the grid when it's needed. So this is really useful because the electric vehicle batteries can charge at non-peak times, and then when the grid needs extra energy, can sell this energy back into the grid. School buses are a really good opportunity for this because they have larger battery packs than a lot of electric vehicles. And they also have very set schedule with downtimes that align with a lot of peak times for the grid. So this allows them to charge at off-peak times, and then at either midday or during the summer months when they're not being used, they can be selling energy back into the grid. This is a really good option for electric school buses because it allows districts to offset some of the initial costs of electric vehicles. Electric school buses are a bit more expensive than diesel school buses, but between vehicle to grid projects and fuel and maintenance savings, this allows these to become cost neutral. So that's a really brief overview, and you guys will hear a lot more about it today from our two speakers.
Great. Thank you, Kelsey. And now we are just so delighted to have Catherine Barrett join us today. Catherine is an accomplished grants management professional experienced in research development and administration of grants to achieve identified revenue generation and fundraising goals. Experience includes identifying grant opportunities, writing and submitting grant proposals, securing grant awards, managing grant projects and funds, administering stewardship and grant compliance, as well as relationship building with nonprofit partners and funders. She is the Director of Grants at the City of Beverly, Massachusetts for just a little over 3 years. She's responsible for research, development, and submission of federal, state, and foundation grants to support various departments and initiatives for the City of Beverly. She identifies and cultivates new funding sources, develops relationships with nonprofit partners and funders, and grants reporting and contractual compliance to advance strategic goals. City of Beverly submitted 106 grants in fiscal year 2020 and secured almost $13 million in grant funding for various projects, programs, and initiatives. So we are just delighted to welcome to the stage Catherine Barrett. Thank you so much, Catherine, for joining us here today.
Thanks, Stephanie, for the invitation to speak, and welcome to everyone. Wow, that was, when you read out a bio, it sounds really impressive. A little embarrassing as well. Anyways, I'm the Director of Grants for the City of Beverly, and I work with 20 plus departments in our city and our schools to help research and identify grant opportunities, and then to apply for them, administer them, and do the compliance and reporting on the back end. And I put together this presentation I'm going to share on our electric school bus acquisition project in Beverly. Can everyone see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes, you can. Okay, perfect. So let me go to the first slide here. There we go. So for those folks, because we have attendees nationwide, I just want to give a background on Beverly, Massachusetts. We're
and Catherine, you might just want to put it into slideshow mode.
Oh, okay. Let's see. I'm not sure how to do that.
Up at slideshow.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
Yep, that's okay. And then over to the left at the top. There you go.
Is it present online or just from beginning?
Just from beginning.
There we go. Okay. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes, beautiful.
Okay. Thanks, Daphne, for that suggestion. So let me go to the next slide here. Beverly, Massachusetts has a population of about 43,000 people. It's considered a small city. We're about 25 miles north of Boston. We're right on the ocean, and we have 5 Mass Bay transit stops, the T stops in Beverly. It's very convenient to get into Boston. It's about a 28-minute ride on the express on the train. Our mayor, Mike Cahill, has been in office since 2014. He is a U.S. climate mayor. He also serves on the Beverly School Committee. And in Beverly, we have a sustainability plan. Our mayor is greatly committed to sustainability efforts. Our plan includes recycling and composting. We have a citywide composting program, reducing CO2 emissions from both vehicles and buildings. Solar, we have a solar field and have solar on our municipal buildings. We have electric vehicle charging stations, both level 2 and level 3. We have a climate action plan that is a regional climate action plan with Salem, Massachusetts, which is right over the bridge from us. We have resiliency and hazard mitigation efforts because we are a coastal community due to global warming. And we hired our first sustainability director in October of 2020. And there's been a trend in Massachusetts of communities hiring sustainability coordinators or directors because there are quite a substantial number of grants that are related to sustainability. And so we bring in quite a bit of grant funding through sustainability efforts. In Massachusetts, about 6 years ago, there was a pilot electric bus program, and the state selected 3 communities in Massachusetts, Amherst, Cambridge, and Concord, to get electric school buses. The manufacturer that they chose was Lion out of Canada. And we watched that pilot very closely to see what the learning was going to be from that project. And there were definitely some challenges, but the key lessons learned out of that pilot, and they tracked that for about 3 or 4 years, was the importance of managing the school bus charging and the need for local electric school bus technical expertise and managed charging. And we particularly looked at the Concord, Mass electric bus. And in January of 19, the city of Beverly, with our mayor, started to discuss how we could electrify our school bus fleet and reduce toxic carbon emissions. We have about 50 buses in our school bus fleet in Beverly. They're both full-size and shorter buses and some vans. And the mayor and I presented to our school committee to get a blessing to begin the transition of our combustion engine buses to all electric. The primary barrier that we were facing was the cost. So when we first started looking at the electric school bus price, they were about $400,000 with the cold weather package. We do need heaters on the bus because we are in a cold climate in the winter. And the diesel school buses, to compare, were about $90,000. And so that cost barrier was significant, and certainly the biggest hurdle we needed to figure out a way to overcome. And so the first thing that we go to is grants, rebates, or incentives. And those vary widely depending on what state you're coming from. We have some envy for California because they seem to have really great grant, rebate, and incentive programs for a whole slew of sustainability efforts. And a few other states have robust programs. Massachusetts, we were hoping after that pilot electric bus study that they would roll out a statewide grant program for electric school bus acquisition. That has not happened yet. And so our mayor said we need to figure out a way to start transitioning our fleet. If the state's not going to offer any significant grant programs for electric school buses, we need to figure out a way to do it on our own. And so that was the challenge. The first thing that we thought of was the Volkswagen settlement grant. And I believe all states have that in different forms. The deadline for that was in March of 2019. And so we were actually applying for that Volkswagen grant in Massachusetts for a couple of other things. You could put in multiple proposals within 4 different buckets. And so we decided as a city, well, we talked about whether we were going to own or lease the buses. We currently own our buses after 5 years. So we don't typically lease. However, with electric school buses, it's an entirely different technology and charging and infrastructure. We were talking about, how to install and manage charging stations, which we don't have a lot of experience on the municipal side. The vehicle to grid technology, where you can earn revenue by plugging in the buses when it's off peak time and they're not being used, was very, very appealing to the city. Another revenue stream is something that is exciting, especially to our financial people and our mayor. We also talked about the solar canopy over the bus depot to help charge the buses, and then liaising with our utility, National Grid, and then needing assistance with batteries and software. And so we felt that the risk was the lowest if we leased this first electric school bus and learned from somebody that had expertise across a lot of these different areas. And so we decided as a city to put out an RFP for an electric school bus lease. And we developed that with our director of transportation and our purchasing director, and input from our mayor and our superintendent. We received 1 bid for the RFP, and the winning bid was Highland Electric Transportation, which is based in Hamilton, Massachusetts. And under the lease that we have with Highland, they were going to be assuming all operational risk under the lease, which was very attractive for the city to have somebody charging, putting in the infrastructure, charging the bus, troubleshooting if software didn't work or there were any type of issues. Highland Electric ordered our bus from Thomas Built Buses, which is based, I believe, in North Carolina. The lead time when the bus was ordered was about 12 months. I think that lead time is now a little bit shorter as these production facilities are manufacturing electric school buses. The lead times have definitely decreased. And the biggest hurdle was going to be the installation of charging infrastructure. And that took quite a bit of time. The photos there, I'll just point out, are before we put in the charger. We were doing a sort of groundbreaking, and then after when the charger went in. And the charger is quite substantial in size. It's much larger than, say, a level 2 or a level 3 charging infrastructure. So we needed to put in charging infrastructure, and there were several steps that were involved in that. And the first one was that we needed to liaise with our utility, National Grid. We needed to apply to have a new pole set and conduit that would go to the charging station, and to get an easement for the electrical to come in. And so that took some time and was a little bit challenging. And we were very, very, very thankful to have Highland Electric leading the way on that, because this was a brand new project that we didn't have any learning from previously. And it required significant investment from Highland Electric to put in the charging station. And so it was very helpful to have them guiding the way for us. Again, the bus order was a lead time of 12 months, and the infrastructure was installed. We did experience a production delay of about 90 days due to COVID. The manufacturing facility at Thomas did shut down for a certain period of time. The electric school bus arrived in October of 2020, and there were several steps before we could actually deploy the electric school bus. It had to be inspected, it had to be registered, In Massachusetts, our registry of motor vehicles was actually closed, and they were working by appointment only, which delayed us actually getting those inspections and registrations. We had to do driver training. We have several drivers that needed to be trained on the new electric school bus. It has regenerative brakes, which are a little bit different than combustion engine bus brakes. And it has some features that are new. We have a noise feature where the bus is so quiet that if you wanted to have a feature on the bus that could create a little bit of noise so children can hear the bus coming, you can have that. And there's a few other things that that were different for the drivers. Obviously, charging the bus needs to be plugged in each evening and plugged in, at different times during the day if needed. And then any troubleshooting with the charging. The first time we tried to charge it, it wasn't charging, and so we had to reach out to Thomas to troubleshoot that. And then we also needed to do test runs on the bus with the new drivers. Another big component of this electric school bus project was publicity. We were one of only, I think, 3 communities in the state that were awarded the Volkswagen grant for electric school bus. The other 2 were Concord and Martha's Vineyard. And I believe we're the first ones to have received the electric school bus. So it made a big splash in the media. We had the New York Times at our press event, along with a lot of other publications and trade journals. We sent out a press release wide and far. Thomas and Proterra and Highland all sent out press releases as well, which were coordinated. We did have a big outdoor press event with the mayor and Duncan McIntyre, who's CEO of Highland Electric. And it was very successful, and I ordered perfect weather for that day, so that was fantastic. And the maiden voyage of the electric school bus in Beverly went out on November 17th to one of our elementary schools, Cove Elementary, and transported children home from school that day. And I had children coming up to me saying, "When will I get an electric school bus?" Which was really, really exciting. I wasn't even sure that elementary level children would notice that it was different. It looks very similar to a combustion engine bus, but they noticed right away there was no tailpipe and that it was very, very quiet. So that was super, super exciting. The bus performance to date has been reliable and as expected. That's a shot of the engine there, or the components within the electrical engine. We actually put out a second RFP for an electric school bus early this fall. And the RFP, we received 2 bids for that. And the second RFP was again awarded to Highland Electric. And that bus has been ordered, and we're expecting delivery of it in August of 2021. The vendor again will be Thomas Built Buses, I believe. And the battery platform in these buses is Proterra, which is based out in California. And so the shell of the bus is built by Thomas, but really the platform with the batteries and software is Proterra, and the charging infrastructure we have is Proterra, although we have added a second charging unit. And the utility we work with here in Massachusetts is National Grid, and they've been terrific about helping us get through this project. This is probably new technology and a new project for National Grid as well. So the Beverly Electric School Bus Project is a great case study for others to learn how they can do it. One thing after we did issue all the press is that I got a lot of phone calls and emails from other cities and towns, both in Massachusetts, but across the country, from Colorado and other states, saying, "How did you do this?" And so I am putting together a case study just so others can read it and know what to expect if they want to start to electrify their fleet, and what the challenges may be. The cost of the electric school buses happily has decreased over the last probably 24 months, and it's down to, I think, around 325,000. I'm sure if you do a bulk order, there are some states and cities and towns that are ordering 50 electric school buses at once, so I'm sure the cost comes down further if you're ordering in a higher volume than 1 or 2 buses at a time. And the manufacturing efficiencies, these manufacturing facilities that were rolling off their first electric school buses in 2019 and 20 are now becoming very well-oiled processes, and the buses are coming off faster. And so the lead times for orders are much shorter. Again, we're utilizing grants to continue the electrification of our school bus fleet. And until the price decreases, we'll probably continue to lease them. But the goal is for us to own our buses eventually. And then I just put up some websites. The City of Beverly, Mass website has some information on the grants office page. Highland Electric Transportation, again, is the vendor that won both RFPs to provide the electric school buses for Beverly. Thomas Built Buses is the manufacturer. Proterra is the battery and platform manufacturer. And then National Grid is our local utility that we partnered with for this project. And we had probably 4 or 5 different contacts at National Grid, depending on what we were doing for the project, whether it was solar or vehicle to grid, or the easement or the pole. And so there were definitely several people we were in contact with to get the project off the ground and completed and successful. So that pretty much wraps my presentation. If anyone has questions, I think we're going to have a couple more people speak, but I'm happy to answer questions later in the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. That was amazing, and we're just so in awe of your leadership and all you've done here. It's just incredible, and we can't wait to hear more from you and how you how this journey unfolds and how you get more and more electric school buses for your beautiful town there. Thank you so much. And yes, we do have a few more people who are going to share some information. We would like to bring to the stage Thomas Corman. He is senior engineer at National Grid. Tom's been there for just over 4 years. He is the transportation product developer for C&I and fleet EVs, developing new products to enable the adoption of EVs within fleets and for National Grid's C&I customers. Tom, we are so happy to have you here with us today. And, we invite you to come to the stage and to share your presentation. And then we'll have one more presenter, and then we will do questions all at the end. So it's great to see you, Tom. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Stephanie. And are you guys able to see my screen here?
Yeah. Your presentation?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, let's see. I don't think we see the presentation quite yet. If you want to try again, we also have it and can share it if you'd like.
Let's see. Try that one more time here.
Oops. That's okay.
There we go.
Looks like it's working out.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Thank you for the introduction, Daphne. Yeah. So as Daphne mentioned, I'm a product developer for our commercial programs. So really, you can think of our traditional make-ready. And I just want to talk a little bit about what utilities can offer when it comes to electric school buses, and just some advice for working with them. And I'll share here a diagram that I find is really helpful in communicating, the type of funding that's available. So our utility, National Grid, we span New York, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. Not all of New York or Massachusetts, but we do have all of Rhode Island. And so, within our service territories, we have those 3 states have 3 different EV programs. So there's different levels of funding that we're able to provide for people that want to host EV charging stations. So here is a slightly complicated diagram that kind of details, all of the areas in which utilities can support EV projects. So, in order to install an EV charger, you may need upgrades on, your electric service that you're receiving from your utility. And you may also need to do some work on your property to get that charger set up. So we have those categories split here between what we call utility side and customer side infrastructure. And utilities often will provide funding for utility side infrastructure upgrades. Some do and some don't with the customer side. And some even go as far as to offer rebates for the charging hardware itself and potentially other soft costs. often the state will be providing that funding for chargers or for other soft costs. So sometimes the VW settlement in a specific state will offer funding for that. So, you just have to sort of do the research on what your state offers and make sure that you connect with any programs that your utilities are offering as well. Typically, when considered all together, it makes for a very supportive package that enables the deployment of any EV, fleet EV school buses here in particular, but as well as personal EVs as well, if you're looking to have charging stations for personal light duty vehicles. So yeah, I'm going to move ahead here. I'm happy to come back to that if you have any questions, but just some tips for working with your utility. As Catherine had mentioned, there was a lot of work done between the city, Beverly, and Highland and National Grid to make this project happen. And the key to that was Highland connecting with us very early on in the process. I believe Highland connected with us 18 months before the ribbon cutting of the school bus, which is, very early, but there were a lot of hiccups because there was, certain ways that, they had wanted to do the project and that would or wouldn't work based on interconnection. Beverly, interestingly, has a nice long history of being green, and they have some DG or distributed generation, as we call it in the utility world, already interconnected at the site that they were considering. So I know there's a mention of a solar canopy that was originally wanted here, and unfortunately there was issues because there's other solar projects I think in the queue at the interconnection point that were still needed to be reviewed as well. So there's an issue of timing and everything that prevented some of that from happening. But again, if you get out in front of it and are talking to your utility early, you can generally avoid some of those obstacles. And then for the unavoidable stuff, it gives you time to work through it and figure out alternative solutions. So yeah, if you have a utility that doesn't have an EV program or landing site, it's definitely worth connecting with them anyway, because they may be considering EV programs. And if the more they hear from you, the more support they'll have when they go to their stakeholders to start up an EV program. So that's definitely the squeaky wheel gets the oil is very true in the utility world. And then, and I know I might be making more work for myself just saying that, but I'm fine with that. And let's see here. Yeah, that's it. Just lots of communication, and you'll working with the utility, you'll figure something out. So this was a very cool day that I got to come and see these school buses get deployed, and actually got to ride on one of them. Just really cool to see it all come together, and really excited for Beverly for next summer. I believe they're going through the interconnection process right now, so that they'll actually be able to dispatch these school buses in terms of the V2G aspect and start generating, which is very exciting. So yeah, I'm going to stop because I want to leave time for other folks here and some questions. So I'll pass it back to you, Daphne.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was amazing. I do want to remind everybody that this session is being recorded, and everybody will receive, everybody who registered will receive this recording, and also Catherine's presentation will be included in that. So rest assured, you'll be able to review this again if you want to review the facts and or review the presentation that will be sent to you. We do have one more presenter who we're so excited to bring to the stage is Sam Sinkler. He's from Highland Electric Transportation, and Sam's going to share with you some news that's very exciting. And so we want to thank Catherine, and we want to thank Tom, and we are going to come back and give opportunity for everybody to ask questions. But Sam, why don't you come to the stage and share with us some very exciting news?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Sam. I work at Highland. I sort of support the business in many ways, and I've been very hands-on working with the Beverly School District and city as the project and buses roll out. And I guess I don't have like a formal presentation, but I just wanted to share that as of last night, the school board in Montgomery County, Maryland, which is the 7th largest school district in the country, elected to use Highland Services to begin the transition of their entire school bus fleet to electric. So the immediate award is for 326 buses deployed over 4 years. And it's going to be by far the most extensive electric school bus deployment to date in the continent, and I guess anywhere really. And so it's very exciting, and we're using the Proterra and Thomas platform there as well. And so yeah, I think you'll be probably seeing a lot about this in there's already a few articles out there, I think, in the Washington Post and Bloomberg and other sources. And so I'm happy to answer any questions in general about that project or the Beverly project. And so I'll just kick it back to Daphne, and we can be in the Q&A section.
Terrific. Well, Sam, thank you so much. Wow, that is just a huge announcement, and you heard it here first, at the Multi-State Electric School Bus Boot Camp. So maybe you heard it last night, but regardless, we're all sharing it together. So thank you so much. It's terrific. So what a wonderful morning, and this is just spectacular. So what we really want to do now is we want to invite questions from you, and we want to make sure that if you have an idea or a thought or something you want to share, please post that in chat. Everybody's has lots of great ideas and thoughts, and chat is a great place to share those kinds of things with others who are on the call today. And we're so lucky to have Catherine, Tom, and Sam with us, live here. So if you are here with us live and you want to ask a question, we want to hear from you. We're also going to encourage you to if you aren't on video, come on video so we can see you, and it can be more interactive. So join us on video if you haven't already. And if you have a question, there's a lot of us here today, but just raise your hand if you have a specific question for any of our presenters here today, and we will, and Kelsey and Alyssa, you might have to help me find anybody who has raised their hand. But let's see, it looks like T. Stevens Jones, is that, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, but go ahead with your question.
I was 80-mile winter range seems relatively short, and I wondered if that was a problem, and I wondered if later designed buses are going to have longer range in the winter. Thank you.
This is Catherine Barrett from Beverly. I can answer that question. So the 80-mile a day in the winter is definitely not an issue. We have morning runs with the school buses, and then afternoon runs, and then sometimes after school we have athletic events. We did have field trips prior to COVID-19, but we've been well under that 80 miles a day number between the morning and afternoon runs. So we generally have the electric school bus do the morning and afternoon, and not doing athletic events right now, particularly in the winter, but they certainly can. We do have the mileage to do that. Most of the athletic competitions we have are on the North Shore area of Boston, and probably 10, maybe 15 miles at the most, not really far. So yeah, the 80 miles hasn't been an issue for us.
All right, terrific. Okay, it looks like David, I'm going to ask you to unmute. So
yes, the question is, where does the money come from that Highland has to pull off this wonderful thing that happened in Maryland? That's a huge amount of money.
Yeah, I can answer this. So Highland, oops, my video. So Highland has the backing of some private equity investors. And a big part of our model relies on supplying all the upfront capital because it's such a capital upfront intensive business. I mean, you need those buses are expensive, the charging equipment's expensive, the infrastructure is expensive. And so we are able to supply all the necessary expenditure upfront with the knowledge that V2G revenue, lower maintenance cost, and the overtime deployment of subsequent buses at lower prices as the price declines will, in the long run, keep it budget neutral. And it's just a bet that the schools can't necessarily take, and it does not, to be able to purchase those buses up front doesn't work with the way that they finance their equipment. So it's a matter of supplying all that upfront capital and then making the long term sort of taking on that risk from technology standpoint, that an operational standpoint, that we'll be able to recoup that investment. I hope that answers your question. Feel free to elaborate so I can clarify.
Thank you, David Hager. And thank you, Sam. There's another David, also Vertus, who has his hand raised. If you'd like to go ahead, thank you so much. And thank you, David Hager, for your question.
My question relates to V2G, which is supplied from the bus to the grid. So who manages the supply? It goes to the independent system operator, I understand, on a day ahead and a 5-minute ahead market. So who does that? Is that the utility, or is there a third-party energy provider who places the bid for providing this day ahead and 5-minute ahead electricity to the ISO?
Tom, do you want to take this one?
Sure. Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't sure if you want to, Sam. Sorry about that. Yeah. So for, as I understand it, for the Beverly project specifically, we have a demand response program that is very, attractive, I would say. That is what Highland is participating in, and so there's that level demand response. But I believe also a ISO level demand response program in ISO New England that's being participated in through a third-party aggregator. And David, what you're kind of getting at there, is something I think that FERC 2222 is going to be opening up with these school bus installations. And so at least in ISO New England, you can't bid into the wholesale market unless you have like 500 kilowatts or something like that. Don't quote me on that. But the point is that there is a limit, and with FERC 2222, the third parties will be able to aggregate lots of small DERs and use those aggregations kind of as a diversified portfolio of available capacity that they will bid into the ISO in all the normal ways that generators do. So yeah, that's coming. More of that is coming in the future. And as far as the Maryland project goes, I couldn't speak to that. I mean, just hearing the news now, and Sam and Highland, congratulations on that. It's great news. Super excited for you guys. So not sure how that will work, but yeah, I can tell you, at least for Massachusetts, it's mostly through demand response programs right now. So yeah, no one's really bidding into those markets as you described them right now.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Cheryl, you have a question there.
Hi, yeah, and maybe this is for a future webinar. You can tell me if it is, but I was wondering if our school system contracts out with third parties for the bus, how you suggest we go about looking into the process of, if we want electrified buses, how would we approach this? Because they're not our buses.
Right. So we actually, our organization actually does a lot of programs, a lot of boot camps and toolkits around those situations where you do work with a provider. And so, the first thing is you're going to want to talk with your decision maker with your school fleet, and their school fleet operations manager, and see if they're interested in electric school buses. Then that person is going to need to have a conversation with your provider and discover whether or not the provider is interested in moving forward with electric school buses. And then there's other processes too. Oftentimes you need to get your school board involved. But there's many schools around the country that have third-party providers that are getting these buses. So we can send you additional information. Maybe Kelsey, you can send her some information about our upcoming programs and how we can help assist you with that in your town if that's something that you're looking for, because that's something that we do a lot of, and we'd be happy to help you.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was going to just add, in Beverly, we actually own our school buses. The 2 electric school buses are the first ones we've leased, just because it was lower risk to have somebody helping us with those 2 new technologies, the technology on the buses. But I would say a conversation with whoever your third-party provider is a great start to say that you're interested in having electric school buses in your fleet, and how could they possibly do that. Again, Beverly does own the school buses, and our drivers are Beverly Public Schools employees. But I do know a lot of districts use a third party for both their buses and their drivers. So.
Awesome, thank you. James, it looks like you have your hand up, so we're sending you a request to unmute if you'd like to ask your question.
Sure. I have 2 granddaughters in Beverly, so I'm really excited about what you're doing down there, and have watched it. And I'm working with Mark Riccio over at Highland to convert some of our fleet in the calendar year 22, so September of 22, to electric. The 100-mile range of the buses we're looking at, I'm working with Thomas also, does have some limitations for us, because our buses travel about 100 miles a day plus other activities. And so until range is better, or there's a support system out there for recharging along the way, we'll have to maintain some alternate fuel vehicles. But we're working with Liberty Utilities as well, who's our electric provider. One of the things that I'm struggling with is I've used the ACT Research school bus fuel calculator to do a return on investment. And I still get about a 30-cent per mile spread between the diesel and the electric. And because, like Beverly, we own our own buses and we own our drivers and all that, if we purchase the buses. And that's one of the attractions of Highland. Highland can take advantage of the tax credits that we can't take. And Highland can work with us and our utility to use the buses as storage for the utilities, and so that they can buy electricity from our buses when we need it, or when they need it, to help narrow that spread. So this is an exciting project, and Beverly's an hour and a half from us, so it's convenient and a real nice sample that I'm watching very closely. So we're excited, and I need to get the ROI a little closer to equal so that I can sell this to my board. The upfront cost is clearly a concern, but if we go to the lease like Beverly did, I could probably sell it. So, we're really excited. And Catherine, keep it up and keep in the news so I can watch what you're doing.
James, where are you located in New Hampshire? I'm a New Hampshire girl.
Langdon, New Hampshire. We're Fall Mountain, so just north of Keene.
Oh, yep. I know exactly where it is. Yep.
And,
terrific. And what's the school district there?
Fall Mountain Regional School District.
Okay.
And we run 18 buses, so we have a relatively small fleet.
Yeah.
But our routes are longer than yours because we're very rural.
Sure. I was going to say one recommendation because you do have some longer routes, is you could choose a route or 2 that are your shortest, and no athletics, no field trips. So that's how you get around that that, about 80 miles in the winter, on a charge. But the other thing is, if you do your morning route and you have the bus come back, you can plug it in until you have to do your afternoon route. So those are a couple solutions you can think about. Yeah, you do cover quite a bit of mileage.
Yeah, the daily mileage doesn't concern me because, like you said, we do the morning routes. I can plug them in. We can do the afternoon routes.
Yeah.
It's really co-curricular and other activities where, if I travel to Dover, New Hampshire, which is a 150-mile round trip, I'm not going to be able to do that without a charging layover somewhere along the way. And so that's the type of thing that it's still a challenge while the infrastructure doesn't exist. The other thing is, although I'm working with Thomas, I've also been talking with Lion.
Yep.
And Lion Bus has a bus in the works that's going to have over 150-mile range, probably closer to 200-mile range. And they also, to take care of some of the winter issues, they actually have a diesel heater for the inside of the bus.
Yeah, so it doesn't tax the batteries.
It doesn't rob the battery.
Yeah.
And so they're working with all sorts of different solutions. So it's an exciting time.
Yep, definitely. So we listened to presentations from Lion, Bluebird, and Thomas a couple of years ago before we, really started aggressively figuring out how we were going to acquire an electric school bus. And I think we felt that Thomas was the most advanced at that time, particularly because of the battery platform from Proterra. And our transportation director really was focused on reliability and dependability of the bus, because he can't go to that bus depot at 5:30 in the morning and have an electric school bus not start or not be charged. And so at the time, we felt Thomas was the leader with the Proterra batteries. Now, Lion is based in Canada in a cold weather climate, so I know that they, aggressively are researching how to extend the range of the bus and solutions for, say, the heaters on the bus so they're not draining the batteries. So it's exciting to watch all of them because they're competing and they're trying to come up with the best technology and the best, longest lasting batteries. And so it's very exciting to watch. And I will mention that the remainder of the Beverly fleet is all Bluebird. So these are our first 2 Thomas buses, but we examined all 3 of the manufacturers, the big ones, and made the best choice based on reliability of the product.
Because most of our fleet is Thomas, we're leaning that way because that way the window components, the light bulbs, all those things are the same no matter what the drivetrain is. And so that's certainly something we're considering. Lion is also building a US plant and will be open by this time next year with US manufacturing. So yeah, it's an interesting, dynamic, changing daily market.
Thank you so much, James. Thank you so much for your question, and Catherine for your answers and your comments. We have time for a couple more quick questions. We're going to ask Brian to ask his question. And if you do have a question and you're not quite sure how to raise your hand, if you just go down to the bottom of the screen to where it's there's an option for reactions, you can click on that and there's an option to raise your hand. So if you do have one, if there's one more quick question after Brian, please do use that option to raise your hand so we can get another question answered. But Brian, if you'd like to go ahead and ask your question.
Sure. It's actually a follow-up to James. You don't think of your electric school buses as we have to wait until it meets every situation. You're going to go through a learning curve in the first adoption of these vehicles. And so the idea should be, can we find, it's not, let's wait until we can meet 100% of our needs, but will this bus meet a replacement of 1 or 2 of our buses, get that in place, get the experience. Incentives are still needed in a lot of cases, so you won't be able to do a bulk purchase based on the finances. So I suggest people not set 100% replacement goal of their fleet, but really, do their own little pilot, do an 80% goal. And as the technology advances over the decade, you'll be able to get to that 100% once the technology reaches that.
Thanks so much, Brian. Yeah. Thank you so much. Rochelle, did you have a question? Our final question of our boot camp today. So thank you so much for participating. So go right ahead.
Thank you. This has been great. I want to know about the financials. What was the initial outlay to start with by the district, and what does it cost to lease the bus from Highland for the year? Ballpark figures.
I can take that question. So there's no outlay from the city of Beverly or Beverly Public Schools for the electric school bus. We did 2 RFPs for leases. The first lease is for 5 years and it's $24,000 a year. And the second lease is for 10 years and it's $26,000 a year. Highland maintains responsibility for installing the charging infrastructure and the charger, and they own the charger. So at some point we have the option to purchase the charger from them, or, you know, within 5 or 10 years, we may have new charging infrastructure that's more efficient, or, you know, we may pull that charger out and put in a new one that's available in 10 years that charges cars in, you know, an hour. I mean, the buses in an hour. So that's the 2 lease costs. They also assume all of the maintenance responsibility and charging responsibility. And so if there's any mechanical issue with the bus, with the batteries, the software, wipers, tires, anything like that, Highland Electric assumes the responsibility for that as well.
And I'm just going to add to that while $26,000 for a 10-year contract is the price that Beverly is paying for the contract that we're working out right now, the second bus, our model is predicated on offering budget neutrality to the district, and so we'll meet you where your current costs are to purchase, maintain, and fuel a diesel bus. So it's going to depend on your current total cost of ownership, what that annual fee is to us.
Terrific.
Sam, do you know if Highland's on any of the state contract lists yet in Massachusetts?
I'm not sure. I don't
think so.
I don't think so. Nope.
But that's a really good idea. Denise Cohen asked that question. And so in Massachusetts, our procurement laws allow for companies and organizations to apply to be on the state contract list, the state like bid list. And if you're on that list, it avoids a city or town having to go through the RFP and bid process. So we can select that vendor from a state list and use them without going through that lengthy process, which is probably about a couple months on a good time, in a good time. So it saves money, and it's a vendor that or an organization or company that's vetted by the state and then approved to be on the state procurement list. And so that's a really good question. I don't know how all other states work. You know, procurement laws vary from state to state, but that's always a good thing to be on, because then you can go straight to that vendor and discuss with them and have a contract and order your product and save a lot of time.
That's an excellent point. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
Bluebird is
so we are at the top of the hour, and so we want to thank so much.
Justine, could I just add that Bluebird is on the state list for Massachusetts, if you don't mind, please? We could add that.
That's terrific. And you can and please put everything into chat as well. We will be sending the recording, which will have the chat in there. Thank you so much, Jim, for letting us know about Bluebird. And that kind of segues to our session next week. But we want to thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Sam, so much for everything. Thank all of you for joining us today. And we want to invite you to join us again for session 2. This is a boot camp series. So we will be back with you, same time, same channel next week, and we're going to have industry leaders. So if you want to do a deep dive with these electric school buses, join us next Wednesday for this. It's going to be spectacular having these industry leaders, and then join us in 2 weeks. How do we put this all together? How are we going to do this? So this is a 3-part series, and we want you to come back and learn, and we want to help you figure this out. So we just want to thank you again so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you for our upcoming sessions. If you have any questions, you can always email us, and we will be sending out the presentation and this recording to you at some point today. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at our next session. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for presenting.